Hey everyone, welcome to The New Populist. If you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Now I'm watching day 2 confirmation hearings for Ketanji Brown Jackson. And it's going generally how I thought it would. Republicans are bringing up critical race theory, the 1619 Project. All that's fine. And she's doing a pretty good job of being evasive, of pleading ignorance, or just generally not saying anything that could bomb her nomination. Now, there are 2 clips I want to go through from the questioning from Ted Cruz about critical race theory and Marxism and critical race theory, because there's an important distinction I want to make when we talk about critical race theory and Marxism. And also, I want to look at some of her answers and compare them to what we know about critical race theory to see if she is as ignorant of critical race theory as she says she is, which is really quite shocking because when you look at her background, having gone to Harvard Law School, and the fact that critical race theory came from Harvard Law School, and her background with, changing sentencing guidelines for minorities, for her to be ignorant of critical race theory, I would be shocked if she's not an absolute expert in critical race theory. So I don't believe her answers, and Ted Cruz is trying to sort of catch her here because she has mentioned critical race theory in some of her speeches beforehand back in 2015. So I want to go through these 2 clips and break them down, because I think these are important things we need to look at as far as who she is, and also the question again, critical race theory and Marxism and their relationship. So let's look at this first clip.
1619 Project is closely intertwined with a movement that is called critical race theory. Critical race theory, as you know, originated at your and my alma mater at the Harvard Law School. In your understanding, what does critical race theory mean? What is it?
Senator, my understanding is that critical race theory is it is an academic theory that is about the ways in which race interacts with various institutions. It doesn't come up in my work as a judge. It's never something that I've studied or relied on, and it wouldn't be something that I would rely on if I was on the Supreme Court.
Now, as I mentioned in my last video, when she talks about her work on sentencing guidelines, and her example is crack cocaine, that the sentencing guidelines for crack cocaine disproportionately affect people of color. Now, that is a basic issue with critical race theory, that certain laws, although they seem to be colorblind, in fact, negatively impact one group of people more than the other. So I want to read this excerpt here from the book, Critical Race Theory and Introduction, written by Richard Delgado, who is one of the founders of critical race theory. So this is straight from the horse's mouth. An even more extreme version of colorblindness seen in certain Supreme Court opinions today holds that it is wrong for the law to take any note of race, even to remedy a historical wrong. Critical race theorists, or crits as they are sometimes called, hold that colorblindness will allow us to only redress only extremely egregious racial harms, ones that everyone would notice and condemn. But if racism is embedded in our thought processes and social structures as deeply as many crits believe, then the ordinary business of society, the routines, practices, and institutions that we rely on to affect the world's work, will keep minorities in subordinate positions. Only aggressive, color-conscious efforts to change the way things are will do much to ameliorate misery. As an example of one such strategy, one critical race scholar proposed that society look to the bottom in judging new laws. If they would not relieve the stress of the poorest group, or worse, if they compound it, we should reject them. Although colorblindness seems firmly entrenched in the judiciary, a few judges have made exceptions in unusual circumstances. Now, again, I go back to the issue of the sentencing guidelines for crack cocaine. As you can see here, critical race theory would say these sentencing guidelines disproportionately affect the African American community. Thus, we should not have these laws. Now, is that what Ketanji Brown Jackson is doing? No, she's saying, I want to adjust the sentencing, not necessarily get rid of a certain law, but it's in the same ballpark. And so when you look through her history, she has this thing where she's kind of dipping into critical race theory, but she has plausible deniability where she can say, I'm aware of it, but I don't actually incorporate it into my judicial philosophy and the decisions I make on the bench. Is that the truth? I don't necessarily think so, but that's what she claims. Again, she's been very clever in dodging this issue. Now, the other thing I want to bring up is something Ted Cruz said about critical race theory and Marxism. Check out this clip.
So critical race theory, as you know, has its origins in the critical legal studies movement, which also came from Harvard Law School, from a number of critical legal studies professors, crits as they were known when we were in law school, who are explicitly Marxists. And they find their origins in Marxism, although critical legal studies frames society as a fundamental battle between socioeconomic classes. Critical race theory frames all of society as a fundamental and intractable battle between the races. It views every conflict as a racial conflict.
Ted Cruz calls critical race theorists Marxist. Is that the truth? And the answer is not really. Critical race theorists are materialists. Now, you can be a materialist and not be a Marxist, but a Marxist is a materialist. Think of materialism as sort of the soil that Marxism grows out of. And all of these left-wing philosophies grow out of materialism, but they all aren't the same. And so we often confuse Marxism and materialism and sort of take all the left-wing ideologies and wrap them up into one thing that we call Marxism. And that's a mistake because the left they're experts at focusing in on those little semantic details in order to deflect from the bigger issue. So you make this little academic error in calling critical race theory Marxist, and then the leftists will zoom in on it and go, oh, look at Ted Cruz. He called them Marxist again. Critical race theory, they're not Marxist. They don't believe in abolishing private property and tearing down the system. So it's important we not make that mistake because, again, the left can capitalize on those little academic errors in order to distract from the bigger issue. So in the future, I'm going to do a video about the difference between Marxism and materialism and hopefully clarify that. So going forward, we on the right can properly call these philosophies what they are and not sort of give an easy win to the left by mislabeling something, which is what we're doing when we call critical race theory Marxism. Well, that's it for now. Again, if you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.